My name is Takyiwaa Manuh. I work at the University of Ghana, and I'm the convener of the West Africa Hub of the Women's Empowerment Research Consortium. I've also been active in the women's movement, or let's say I'm active in the women's movement in Ghana. I define women's empowerment as a bundle of a number of things, an array of policies, practices, and attitudes that allow women to actualize themselves, to realize their potential. In other words, in a society such as ours, I would look for or expect policies that allow girls to go to school, and not just at basic level, but to the levels that they desire, without feeling that this is unwomanly, or that by doing that they put themselves out of various kinds of markets, whether it's marriage or whatever society considers as appropriate for women. In terms of practices, it's about relationships that sustain, that allow you to be what you are. Relationships are important in any society, and these may be familial, these may be emotional, sexual, whatever. And I think that in many of our families, women are put upon, not just put upon as women to be subservient, to put their wishes behind those of other members of the household, particularly men, or husbands, fathers, brothers, etc. I think that women are very constrained in their decision-making concerning their sexualities, and I see that all of these are important facets. The right to bodily integrity, not to be beaten up, not to be forced to have sexual relations against your will. All these are important. In terms of attitudes, there are so many things in popular culture and even in published texts that are outwardly discriminatory, that represent women as less than human, less than equal. And those are all the things that I'm talking about, So an empowered woman then would be a woman who operates or can operate in an environment that is enabling, that allows them to, as I said, be the best that they can in whatever area that they have chosen to be. It's also about the right of access to resources, and to be able to live and work in a dignified manner. Nekwe and I have been working on policy discourses on women's empowerment in Ghana. So we've been operating at the level of bureaucracies, at the level of bilateral and multilateral organizations, and women's civil society organizations, which work on issues of women's empowerment. We found that women's empowerment is a very fuzzy concept, and that it's a whole number of things, and it's almost like a Humpty Dumpty situation. When I use a word, I want it to mean what I say, and that to be fair, I'd say that the civil society organizations appear to have, more clarity in terms of what they understand by women's empowerment and how they push it. The problem is that many of them tend to work on single issues, and which are very important. In our case, the organizations we've been working with, some of them work on women's rights from a kind of legal perspective. There are those who are dealing with credit, and then there is one organization which is religious but works very much in the area of women's economic and, of course, spiritual empowerment. In terms of findings, I mean, I want to highlight the organization that is working on women's rights issues, and one of the things they found is that, for instance, many of the judges do not seem to be abreast with the provisions of major conventions and treaties that Ghana has signed, and therefore these are not factored into their reasoning as judges, So it is very easy to hide behind Ghanaian culture or customary practices without engaging with the significance of all those, whether it's CEDAW, whether it's the optional protocol on women's rights in Africa, etc., and what this would mean for engaging with women's rights in Ghana, So that is very interesting to me.